When you look at the list of artists with the most Grammy wins, near the top you'll find Stevie Wonder, Beyonce, U2, and Vince Gill. With 21 awards, Gill has more Grammy wins than any other male country artist. In the 90s, he won at least one trophy every year. Over his more than 4-decade career, the country star has played everything from bluegrass to pop and rock. He sold more than 26 million albums and been invited to join both Dire Straits and the Eagles. Now, with his 15th studio album, Gill is releasing some of his most personal songs yet. For his new album, Okie, Oklahoma-born Vince Gill brought out some old songs he'd been keeping in a desk drawer.
She's forever changed.
Forever Changed was written, he says, 7 or 8 years ago. What made you pull that out now?
You obviously see it on a daily basis, what that song's about.
You put your hands where they don't belong.
It's about sexual abuse.
And now her innocence is dead and gone.
You had an incident yourself.
Yeah, and I don't know that it came from that, because what happened to me was the basketball coach in 7th grade tried to act on me in his office and put his hand on my leg and got a little further and further, and so this doesn't feel normal. And I jumped up and I ran out of the office. But I think what I want to convey in that song most is just to tell people somebody's hurting for them and that you didn't do anything wrong.
The album also includes a tribute to his late friend, Merle Haggard.
In a world without Haggard.
And in the morning he died, I just sat down and wrote that song.
You needed to do that.
Yeah, that's how I grieve.
Is it?
Yeah, I go to music for grief. It's cheaper than therapy.
Vince Gill started going to music early, growing up in Oklahoma City. This looks like your report card.
Yeah, it could be. It won't be good.
He gave his first performance in 2nd grade at the Cleveland Elementary School.
I played House of the Rising Sun, so I knew the die was cast. The first song I sang in front of people was about a cat house in New Orleans. I bought this guitar when I was 18 years old.
Yeah. Gill paid a small fortune for the vintage Martin he'd take out on the road.
And that $1,600 that I bought this guitar with was all the money I had in the world.
It was everything.
It was every dime.
This old guitar and me, and the things that we've been through. C.F. Martin built it back in 1942.
He'd have his first hit song with the band Pure Prairie League in 1980. How'd that feel?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Getting to be on American Bandstand and Solid Gold and all these cool shows, you know.
After a few years, Gill left to go solo. But his first few albums didn't take off. And in 1989, Mark Knopfler asked him to join Dire Straits. Was it a tempting offer at the time?
Of course. While it would have solved an awful lot of problems for me financially, I said, if you don't bet on yourself, how are you going to get anybody else to?
The bet paid off on his next album.
'Cause nobody answered.
With the title song, When I Call Your Name.
And it had everything going against it. It was a 4-minute and 48-second waltz.
So why'd it work?
I don't know. It just struck a nerve with people.
It was the first of 17 straight top 10 country hits for Gill in the 90s, 5 of which went to #1.
I still believe in you.
That earned him the 21 Grammys that line his home studio. He also became a highly sought-after collaborator, performing with hundreds of other artists, including his wife, Amy Grant, who he met recording this duet. Then, a few years ago, the Eagles, after the sudden death of Glenn Frey, asked Gill to tour with them.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
I couldn't be more grateful that they thought of me.
Take it to the limit one more time.
But he could feel Eagles fans were a little suspicious.
I get in front of their crowd could feel this kind of holding your breath when I'd start singing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's not the guy. It's not the guy I'm used to. And then after a couple of verses of this and that, I could just literally see them just go, oh, it's going to be okay.
He's been touring with the Eagles for more than 2 years now. Would you keep doing it?
Absolutely. I just like being part of the band, and I always have. I was always a little bit uncomfortable being the focal point.
What were you uncomfortable with?
Just being noticed. I don't need preferential treatment.
You don't have a posse?
I don't have much of a posse, and I drive myself pretty much everywhere I go, and so I'm somewhat abnormal, really, I think. But in my mind, it feels normal, so I like that.
The Eagles are playing 3 shows in Las Vegas later this month, and early October it'll be the band's first live performance of the iconic Hotel California album from beginning to end, and Vince will be there. He's a lovely guy, and there's a reason, he gets asked to play with everybody. It's because he can play just about anything.
He can sing just about anything.
And just about anything. And he says he loves that because he says it's a harder job to make yourself fit in. That somebody else is doing something that somebody else is doing. He says it takes better ears and it almost takes more talent.
Yeah, I love turning points in a person's career.
Yeah.
1989, he's invited to play with Dire Straits. He bets on himself.
Yeah,
Pays
big
off.
bet, and it worked.
And great new song, too.
You can hear more from Vince Gill, including the story of how he first met Merle Haggard at an old honky-tonk on today's CBS This Morning podcast. Listen on your favorite podcast platform.